Evening et bonsoir tout le monde à notre séance de conseil de 14 mars 2022. Welcome to our council meeting of Monday, March the 14th, 2022. I have with me Councillor Mike Cohen, Councillor Stephen Erdely, Councillor Dita Burku, Councillor Lior Azarad, Councillor Sidney Ben-Isri, Councillor Andy Schuster, and Councillor Mitch Kajaski, as well as various members of our staff. Welcome, everybody. Before we start, we're going to have a moment of silence for two important issues that are going on in the world right now. The first being the war in Ukraine, and the second, the situation of COVID, which we will both address in a moment after our minute of silence. Okay, so as we all know, a lot has changed since our last public council meeting in the world that we live. And we stand united with the Ukrainian community. The city of Côte Saint-Luc has a very close relationship with both the Russian and Ukrainian community in our city. We have 745, based on the 2016 census, 745 first generation Russian immigrants living in Côte Saint-Luc, 565 Ukrainian. And of ethnic origin, we have 5,045 Russian and 1,315 Ukrainians. And both communities are very close and get along very well in Côte Saint-Luc, and stand for similar values, and have moved to the democratic country of Canada in order for us to hopefully have an influence on all the people of the world. And we're all doing our best in our own little way. Today, we're all wearing the colors of the Ukrainian flag. And before I go on any further, I'm going to pass the floor over to Councillor Stephen Erdely, who's going to present a resolution. It's Dita Burku on this. Dita Burku, right? Councillor Burku.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just going to read the resolution. Whereas on February 24th, 2022, Russian forces enabled by Belarus launched its unprovoked, full-scale renewed invasion of a peaceful, independent country, Ukraine. Whereas the people of Côte Saint-Luc have been moved by the inspirational leadership of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the resolve of the people of Ukraine to defend their democracy. Whereas the United Nations estimates there could end up being as many as 4 million Ukrainian refugees displaced by this war. Be it resolved that City Côte Saint-Luc supports the people of Ukraine and condemns the hostilities of the Russian Federation. That the City of Côte Saint-Luc urges fellow Canadian municipalities to adopt resolutions condemning the actions of the Russian Federation and supporting the Ukraine. That the city encourages residents to donate to their preferred registered charity in support of Ukrainian civilians, including the Canadian Red Cross, Federation CJA, among others, in addition to local clothing drives such as those organized by the Ukrainian community of Montreal. That the City Council calls on the Government of Canada and the Government of Quebec to assist and welcome those fleeing the war into our country and our community and offer robust military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. And that this resolution be circulated to the Prime Minister of Canada, the Premier of Quebec, Anthony Housefather, our MP, David Bierbaum, our MNA, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Union des Municipalités du Québec.
Moved by Councillor Burku, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion? First of
Well,
all, go ahead.
as you know, and as you said, we've all been basically glued to our TVs watching this atrocity happening. It's just unbelievable and shocking that this could happen in this day and age. And we will do everything in our power, but unfortunately, as a municipality, we only have the power to raise awareness and to also to maybe raise some community charities that are raising money and raising also the opportunity to sponsor some people to come to our community. So we're looking into all those things, and we hope and pray that this terrible invasion ends very soon, and that the Ukrainian people can go back home ultimately to a reconstructed Ukraine, because now it is pretty much destroyed. It's terrible.
As Councilor Berkeley said, I've been fortunate to have visited Ukraine. I've been to Odessa, and beautiful country, wonderful people. As an immigration attorney, I had the privilege of helping some people immigrate to Canada from the Ukraine. And it's just mind-boggling to think that in 2022, this is happening in the world. And I know our governments are doing everything that they can based on the intelligence that they have and their willingness to help de-escalate the situation, hopefully stop the war. We all think, is it possible? We're watching every day. The Russians thought they could take this country over in 3 days. And here we are 16, 17 days later. And it's a miracle. I think tomorrow, the President Zelensky speaking to the Canadian Parliament. I believe it's tomorrow. I think we're all going to be watching that. It's remarkable. And our hopes and our prayers are with the Ukrainian people and with President Zelensky, in the hope that he continues to prevail and stop this tyrant from his goal of going much further, we fear, than just the Ukraine. And he's fighting for all of us and for the democracy of the world and all of those that believe in the values that we stand for. So let us continue to pray and hope for a positive outcome to this unbelievable situation that's happening in the world today. Okay, I don't know if anybody else wants to make any comments, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I'm going to speak about the situation of COVID as it exists right now. Okay, so I am going to give a bit of an update on the situation as we see a lot of things are being relaxed. The passport has been, the obligation to use the passport has been taken away, I think on Saturday, and there's discussion of the mask mandate stopping at some point in the future. So I just wanted to, as all the decisions that we've made in this city with respect to COVID were based on science and looking towards what the doctors and what the health authorities were saying was the situation. And when we were the first to come up with the idea of having masks, it wasn't our idea. It was working in other jurisdictions, and it was reducing the transmission of the virus from infected individuals to others. So it's proven as it is today to be a very useful tool. But before we get into that issue, I just wanted to give people an update to really understand the situation of COVID today, just from this weekend's newspapers. I'll first read from the Globe and Mail some statistics from Andre Picard's article of this Saturday. In Canada, the single deadliest day of the pandemic was 6 weeks ago. We had more cases the first 2 months of 2022, and this is with the limited testing that we know of, 1.1 million, than in all of 2020, which was 581,000. There were over 1.6 million cases in 2021. The number of COVID-19 patients in hospital is presently around 4,500. And those are the stats that we have to look at today, because we're not testing like we used to, but they still know how many people are in the hospital. So there are about 4,500 in the hospital in Canada today. In Rene Brumer's article of Saturday as well, he cites some very interesting facts. Many argue, should some restrictions continue in order to protect the vulnerable from unnecessary hospitalization, suffering, and death. As a family physician, a doctor in Ottawa by the name of Millie Kaplan-Mrith wrote in her opinion in Ontario, in just the last few days, she's a family doctor, we have had calls from entire families sick with COVID-19, young children and their grandparents who are struggling with high fevers, exhaustion, brain fog, some short of breath, that they cannot go through a sentence. Our politicians are spinning a tale that the pandemic is over. It's not. Dr. Andre Veillette, Director of Molecular Oncology Research Unit at the Montreal Clinical Research Institute, predicts that numbers will rise as social contacts increase. He argues that public health is moving too quickly and removing some restrictions, particularly mask wearing in classrooms, at the expense of those vulnerable to infection like the aged, immunocompromised, and those suffering from chronic medical conditions. There is no negative effect on the economy by waiting a little longer. People are tired and they want to move on, but the pandemic is not over. So I did consult with a local doctor that we all know, Dr. Earl Rubin, who wrote me the following, that since the beginning of and he is the Division Director of Pediatrics Infectious Disease at the Montreal Children's Hospital of the MUHC. Since the beginning of the pandemic, masks have been a relatively successful mitigating practice to help limit the spread of COVID. The type of mask, whether it's cloth, homemade, versus a certified 2 to 3 layer procedural mask, make a difference. Of course, N95 is the best, but for the general community, a well-fitted procedural mask suffices. Given the lifting of many limitations, most notably the ability of household contacts of a positive case to be able to go out and about without any period of quarantine, is concerning, as is the ability of someone who tests positive to be out of isolation on day 5, raises the concern that there will be infectious people in the community, and masks for those that they are in contact with will decrease the likelihood of catching the virus. So as the population of Côte Saint-Luc includes elderly and immunocompromised individuals, which is I added in the immunocompromised individuals, even if fully vaccinated, they can become infected, especially if more than 3 months have elapsed since their booster dose. It is essential that all high-risk individuals get their 3rd dose to help decrease the possibility of severe infection, hospitalization, and death. Unfortunately, the efficacy to prevent infection is at best 50%, and infected, whether symptomatic or asymptomatic, can still transmit the infection. For all these reasons, the above supports the idea of continued masking in certain venues in Côte Saint-Luc, which is something we are discussing. So what we are discussing right now, and people ask, I can't speak for the province, but we do know, I called Lisa Rubin at the Siegel Center, and she said, yes, they're going to include masks. They can't do the passport, obviously. The passport would be, unlike masking, having a certain segment of the society not be able to participate in your activities. But masking doesn't stop anybody from participating. In fact, it encourages more people to participate, because those that are afraid of being infected have less fear of attending and participating in things that they love. So what we're studying, and we've asked our directors, is to study the question of which facilities and activities in the city of Côte Saint-Luc would benefit from masking. Benefit meaning improve the mental health and physical health of the participants. Ensure that individuals who otherwise may stay home and go back into isolation in their homes would come out and continue to live life, which is the goal of returning to the new normal. Ensuring that not only the majority, but the minority also can participate in life to the fullest and participate in wonderful activities and programs that we offer. So that is, we've been consulting with doctors, and we're waiting for recommendations from our directors of the various departments to come back with what they think would ensure that all individuals, majority populations, are happy participating in our programs, using masks where necessary and recommended as a benefit to all. So that's the update on the situation. So people should know where we are in the pandemic. We don't know the future. We only know the past, can't predict the future, but we know where we're at right now. And we're studying what we should do to improve the quality of life of all. So that is that one. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that we're moving that to the top of the agenda here too, Councillor Erdely. Before we move on, we're going to move the item of pass another resolution on the situation with Dawson College. Councillor Erdely, are we going to do that now, or do you want to do that later?
Oh, no, I can do it now. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just as a point of procedure, I think we forgot to vote on the previous motion with regard to the Ukraine. So I think for procedural terms, we have to.
We said everybody in favor, and then we discussion, and we didn't vote. Everybody all in favor? Carried unanimously. You got it. And now you can go on to the Dawson resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll read the whereases and the resolution in English, and then I'll read the clauses of the resolution in French as well. Whereas Dawson College is a post-secondary education institution which offers programs of study to Quebecers of all backgrounds, whereas in accordance with ministerial space allocation standards, Dawson College is suffering from a space deficit of more than 11,500 square meters, whereas after more than 7 years of collaboration with the Ministère de l'Enseignement Supérieur, Dawson College is proposing to relocate its healthcare programs to a new location, and whereas dossier d'opportunité has been completed and approved in accordance with the rules set by the Société Québécoise des Infrastructures, whereas the Dawson College project is among the priority projects listed in the Act respecting the acceleration of certain infrastructure projects adopted by the National Assembly of Quebec in December 2020, whereas the Premier of Quebec stated in February 2022 that the project is being canceled in favor of projects at French CEGEPs, whereas canceling the Dawson College project will have a negative impact on programs offered to current and future Dawson College students, whereas Dawson College students are entitled to educational services of equivalent quality to those offered to students at other CEGEPs in Quebec, whereas there cannot be two categories of institutions and two categories of students in the public college system. Be it resolved that the City of Côte Saint-Luc wishes to convey to the Premier of Quebec their deepest disappointment and disapproval of the government's decision to postpone the Dawson College capital project, and that the City of Côte Saint-Luc understands the importance of the project and necessity for the school to be treated equitably under the ministerial standards in force, and accordingly that the government of Quebec maintain the Dawson College project as a project to be carried out in the next Plan Québécois des Infrastructures. And I'll read the clauses of the resolution in French. Il est proposé que le conseil de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc signifie au Premier ministre du Québec sa vive déception et sa désapprobation quant à la décision du gouvernement de surseoir au projet d'immobilisation du collège Dawson, que le conseil de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc signifie l'importance et la nécessité que le dossier soit traité de façon juste et équitable en vertu des normes ministérielles en vigueur, et qu'en conséquence, le gouvernement du Québec maintienne le projet du collège Dawson comme projet à réaliser dans le prochain plan québécois des infrastructures. Merci.
Moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion?
So I'll just speak briefly. I think many of us have seen this news story and are not happy. I think this is another, this is another slight to the English-speaking community. We are reading as well the stories of Bill 96 and the new impositions that are being posed to limit, among other things, access to English CEGEPs and access to CEGEPs for not just Anglophone or English-speaking Quebecers, but to Quebecers in general. I think this is a concern to all of us. I think a community is only as strong as its educational institutions, and we want to strive to make sure that those of the English-speaking community will last not just for us and our future generations, but for generations and generations to come. So I hope that this will be supported unanimously by the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Anyone else? Okay, well, you spoke very well to that, Councillor Erdely. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So that's carried unanimously. Hopefully it will have some positive effect. We have to keep up the movement and the energy moving forward on issues of importance to the English community, to minority communities. This is really very disappointing. to say the least. Okay, before we move on, I want to just congratulate one of our members who's been outstanding in the community, who just won the silver medal for the Lieutenant Governor of Quebec's award, Dave Gandel, who's president of our men's club during the pandemic. Always, he's done wonderful volunteer work for the community at synagogue, at B'nai B'rith, at Combined Jewish Appeal, and for the men's club, which is an independent organization, he has helped so many residents in Côte Saint-Luc throughout the pandemic, connecting them and making sure that they stayed connected with through technology. He brought computer literacy to this population in an amazing way that so many are now able to participate using Zoom and other technologies. So it's really wonderful. We nominated him for this prestigious award, and he received it. And I wish him a hearty congratulations and continued success in everything that you do. And now we will move on to the question period. So let's go. First question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first question is from Shelley Rothman Benaim. We recently received a notice saying that the city of Côte Saint-Luc would like to pick up just one bin of regular garbage on Thursdays from each house. This is referring to the black bins, or in some cases, green bins with a city sticker on it. But what about duplexes? There are 2 households in duplexes, and very often we need to put out 2 bins to cover all the garbage. Do we put the 2 bins side by side or one in front of the other? And houses / duplexes with babies generate a lot of garbage. And what about if someone is moving or downsizing and needs to fill many bags of garbage? What would we do then? To top it all off, this past Thursday, neither the black nor the green bins on my streets were picked up at all.
Okay, well, thank you for that question and for that notification. Whenever we have that type of information with respect to our contractor who's not doing their job, we do follow up. So I appreciate that. Every single family home or duplex has its own bin. And of course, duplexes receive 2 bins because there's 2 homes there. If you have more than the waste that is able to be filled into your bin, you can always call Public Works and we'll arrange for a special pickup. But generally the bins are big enough that if they're used properly and you use the 3 bins, recycling, composting, and garbage, they are usually big enough. But of course there are exceptions, and for that you can call Public Works. What else? For big, large, bulky items, we do have a day where we pick up furniture and appliances. On Thursdays, you can place couches and upholstered items out, and they will be picked up with, by the city. And if there is a pickup, you definitely should notify us immediately, and we will ensure that the company comes back and does the pickup. But in this case, if it wasn't picked up at all, we will take note and file the necessary complaint. So it shouldn't happen again, hopefully. So I appreciate your question. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I can just add.
Yeah.
Just to mention as well, I'm sure most residents are aware of this, but about 80% of the waste that we produce in our homes is either compostable or recyclable. So it's really only about 20% of the waste that actually should go in the black bin. About 40% can go in the blue bin, and about 40% can go in the brown bin. And if someone is, needs some tips, you can go to our city website or reach out to our Public Works department, and they give you some very good tips on how to properly triage your waste. Thank you.
Yeah, we have excellent staff working in that department who are always available to assist, for sure. Okay, next question, please.
Next question is from Norman Sabin. Côte Saint-Luc allows residents to drop off hazardous waste, old electronics at its Public Works yard. It used to allow these drop-offs 24/7, 365, and there was a big container to safely place articles just outside the entry gate to Public Works. Unfortunately, since fall 2021, drop-offs are restricted to weekdays before 3 p.m., and I, for one, have trouble meeting this schedule. Being able to drop off an old can of paint on a Sunday was a great convenience. According to the Côte Saint-Luc website, the drop-off schedule was changed for COVID-related reasons, but I'm not sure I understand, especially since the drop-off area is outdoors and outside the gate to Public Works. Will council consider reinstituting the 24/7, 365 drop-off system?
Okay, well, the answer that I've received from Public Works is that people were dropping off items that were not permitted, which is why they changed the system. I'm not sure if it's just COVID related. They used to have a bin, a yellow bin for electronic waste, but people were dropping off other items in there, including some that make it potentially dangerous, like propane canisters. So Public Works had to remove that bin. If you have electronic waste, you need to drop it off at Eco Center Côte Saint-Luc, which is at 6928 Côte Saint-Luc. Of course, you can email me or Public Works and we'll send you the information directly. That's near the Maxi supermarket. The service is free for residents who are dropping off limited amounts in a private vehicle. Okay, next question.
The next question is from Toby Schulman. Why is the council doing away with the vaccine codes at the ACC and other CSL buildings, but thinking about continuing to allow masks to be worn in all city buildings? Why go halfway? Every Côte Saint-Luc citizen should be protected equally. Personally speaking, I would feel much more comfortable if we would continue as we have been with max and vaccine codes for a little while longer until we see what happens in the province once all the restrictions have been removed. We led the province before the wearing of masks and we were proven right. Why not continue a little while longer? I'm speaking as one of the many senior citizens of Côte Saint-Luc who feel this way.
Well, thank you, Ms. Schulman. You know, when we implemented the mask mandate at the beginning of the pandemic, we created a state of emergency, which was within the right of a municipality if circumstances are deeming appropriate, and at that time they were. And proved correct, as you know, we did have some seniors' homes that many individuals got infected and died, etc. We are not going to institute a state of emergency now, and we're not the province, so we do not have the right to exclude people, a certain part of our population, from using our facilities. That's under provincial jurisdiction, and we're not in a state of emergency in the city of Côte Saint-Luc. However, masks, the ministry's been very clear. The question Andrew Brennan asked me from CTV News was repeated directly to the minister, and on television he said, everybody can decide what is appropriate for them, whether it's a municipality, whether it's a theater company like the Seagull Center, whether it's the men's club, which is an independent club. They can decide if they feel it's appropriate for their population. So that's not infringing anybody's access to a facility. It's just asking them to put on an additional piece of, well, not clothing, but it's a mask. So it's a mask, and that anyone's allowed to do that. Club can do it, a restaurant can do it, a gym can do it, a city can do it. So we are looking at where it would be appropriate for us to do it. And that's why we're waiting for more advice from doctors that we're consulting with and from our directors to ensure that the population that needs the protection and would benefit for their physical and mental health from it will get it. And we're studying it in order to be ready when the mask mandate is dropped by the province. Okay, next question.
The next question is from Heather Treston. With reference to the problem of non-conforming institution in residential areas and private homes and duplexes, it is the middle of March 2022, and I would like to have an update as to the progress by the city to pass a bylaw requiring these institutions to seek legal status, especially on Eldridge, where there are two non-conforming institutions, just two duplexes apart from one another, which causes so much traffic, noise, nowhere to park, and garbage. This area is residential. There is no room for businesses on this street. This used to be a quiet neighborhood.
Thank you. So as promised by this council, we are moving forward on this objective. It's not an easy one. We want to ensure the continued peaceful coexistence of all people in our community and the right for religious freedom as well. And we want these, you know, everybody to have access to the religious institutions of their choice. And of course, we want them all to be legal. So that's why we're going step by step. And we've been meeting with all of the rabbis from the institutions that you make reference to. We are passing a first draft of an item number, which one is it? It's towards the end of the agenda tonight. On item 13A, we're passing a notice of motion and bylaw with respect to various additional areas in the city where we're going to be allowing additional use for religious purposes. So if anybody wants to have more options in our city, we're providing them legally. And then we're going to be going to the next step, which is the PCMY bylaw, which will be requiring non-conforming institutions to request the additional usage and go through a process where the public will decide. So we're doing what we said we're doing, but it doesn't happen overnight. And you'll have to be patient. We want to do it properly. We want to do it fairly, and we want to do it in a harmonious way that everybody can obtain the objective that they want in the end to the best of our ability. Okay, next question, please.
The next question is from Mickey Harar. Has any progress been made on the issues affecting residents that remain outstanding regarding the illegal synagogues in Côte Saint-Luc? Last fall, you explained that the process would start in March 2022. Please provide the residents with the timeline when the process will start. When will the city publish a list of the illegal synagogues? What is the city doing to ensure that its municipal bylaws are followed regarding noise, parking, garbage, and cleanliness? Kindly let us know when we can expect to hear some news. Every year, more and more illegal synagogues open up, more apply for tax-free status, and more residents move out because these issues are not being addressed.
I think I've answered most of your questions based on the previous question, but in terms of the ones that I might not have, let's see what they might be. Noise, parking, garbage, and cleanliness, we continue to use existing bylaws to regulate those issues and give out tickets where necessary. Okay. Yeah, publishing a list. Well, the PCMY bylaw is coming up soon, and the bylaw for additional uses is going on tonight. So I think I've answered all your questions. Okay, thanks. Next.
The next question is from Bram Schuster. Can someone articulate to me the city's aversion to using technology in almost every aspect of service? Technology is the only tool whose cost has decreased as opposed to salaries, utilities, supplies, and yet it is severely underutilized by the city. For example, last summer, a mailing was sent about new garbage bins. This mailing not only caught my attention because of the cost of the actual postage, but the contents inside. After bringing this matter to the mayor's attention, he referred me to Mr. Levine, who was more than reluctant to supply with just the total number of households that were targeted. In the interest of time, I'll let you know that this mailing cost between $12,000 and $15,000 to notify residents about the new garbage bins they would be receiving. Even worse, the next week there was a mailing regarding the water issue. I cannot remember if it was the filters or the water test itself. Needless to say, as a taxpayer, I'm not impressed with the cost to message ratio. Why not have postcard mailing with a link to a website that has all the information? It is more cost effective, flexible, and will have more actual taxpayers absorbing the information. I would argue that the senior citizens probably never thought that they'd be using Zoom or ordering their groceries online, but have adapted, unlike the city where they reside. There are other frustrating examples from the end of the user side, which I relayed to Andy Schuster over the last month. One issue was the recreation department does not have access to the city website, and if they want to make a change, it takes 48 hours. Something as simple as a fun card can be reduced to a picture on a phone. Not only is it more convenient and it costs nothing, and you can even ask the purchaser if they want their receipt mailed. Yes, a very small percentage of people don't have a phone, but the majority of people go to the ACC or pool don't want to carry their wallet. While we're on the subject of the ACC, why should a non-resident pay the same as a resident on a daily pass? I'm not talking about the fun card. Does this represent millions of dollars? I know, but it also distinguishes between the people whose tax dollars pay for the operations of the ACC and those who don't. And that's the end.
Okay. All right. So let's deal with the one that was off topic, so I don't forget it right away. And then I'll get back to the big issue. In terms of the daily fee, it's a minimal fee. As you suggested, it's much easier for staff to have that one minimal fee. Most people we encourage to buy the fun card, which is what only residents of the city of Côte Saint-Luc have access to. With respect to the bigger question about using technology, unfortunately, it's great. We want to use technology as much as we can, for sure. And we've learned a lot during the pandemic. Zoom, nobody hardly even knew how to use Zoom at the beginning. But unfortunately, we still have a community that's not completely computer literate. Not everybody has a smartphone. Sorry to say, my mom doesn't. She has a flip phone. She has a flip phone, no access to computer. So there are a lot of people that still don't have the ability to do what you're suggesting. So we need to make sure that they can receive the information that we want them to receive, like everybody else, and we don't leave anybody out. But we will get there. We will use technology more and more as more and more of our population becomes computer literate and have the proper phone technology or computer to do the things that you suggest. So I do thank you for all your ideas, and we are moving in that direction. It's just maybe not as fast as you'd like. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I may chime in.
Go ahead. Sure.
I was just going to say, if I can, on the flip side, we've come a long way just over the last few years. If I think back to recreation, for example, a few years ago, residents had to go line up in person to sign up for a program. And obviously now they can sign up online and register for any program. We used to send out the full mailing of the full recreation package by mail. Now we send a postcard telling residents to go to our website to download it or to view it. So it saves significantly on costs. Right now, residents can access their tax bill online. They can pay their taxes online as well. So I think we've saved significantly in terms of printing. The cost of a postcard, for example, is a few $1,000s as opposed to mailing a full package, which is probably triple the amount or quadruple. So I think we have saved significantly in terms of our costs. We've come a long way, and obviously there's still ways to go. But I would say I'm quite happy with how far we've come just in the last few years. And I should say even before COVID, we had already started many of these points. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Okay, now we move on to approval of the minutes. Councillor Erdely, approval of the minutes, please. Moved by Councillor Erdely. Moved by Councillor Erdely. Seconded by Councillor Cohen. Any discussion? All in favor? So the minutes of February 14, 2022 are now adopted. Any business arising from the minutes? Departmental reports, Councillor Azarad. Item number 4.
Okay, so the monthly reports submitted for February 2022 B and are hereby approved as drafted.
Moved by Councillor Azarad, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion? Councillor Cohen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to tell citizens that one of the things I started when I got the library portfolio was a local author series. We had our first one with Pinka Split, who the mayor also had interviewed earlier in the fall, but we had that in January. In February, you had Dr. Haley Frank, psychologist, who talked about her new book. We had quite a good viewership. It's still on YouTube. People can watch it on the library website and Facebook page, and on our Côte Saint-Luc YouTube channel. And we also now in February, we're going to have a very interesting author, someone I never knew was an author until he approached me, and that is Sam Cloda, brother of a well-known party coordinator, Harry Cloda. And Sam, who lives in Hampstead and is a member of our library, has written a book called The Atomic Bomb in Images and Documents, the Manhattan Project and the Bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it's a great book. I'm halfway through it. And, you know, I'm not a big book reader, but I'm becoming one now with the portfolio again. And so I'm certainly welcoming anyone in the public who knows of a local author, someone in Côte Saint-Luc, Hampstead, Montreal West, NDG, in the Montreal area. We'd like to profile them once a month. So please let me know. I'd like to thank Public Works for the work they're doing at Rembrandt Park. Right now, the chalet is being fixed, and they're putting in handicapped accessible washrooms, which will be ready when the spring season starts. And I know there's a lot of people that do come to the park who are brought there in wheelchairs and so on and so forth. So thank you, Beatrice Newman and your team. We do have a portable, almost a deluxe porta potty there right now, because people are still using the park in the winter. They're using the rink that we put up, so that there is a place for people to use a washroom right now. We will bring back our Golf Classic on August the 9th. Co-chairs this year are myself, Councillor Burku, and Manny Young. And we'll have more information next month to share on the Golf Classic, but it'll be on August the 9th at Meadowbrook. And I believe that's my report for today, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Who's next? Councillor Burku, or your hand was just up to second. No?
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to report that the Cavendish extension is making a little bit of progress. Last week, actually about a week ago, the City of Montreal deposited the avis de projet to the BAP, the Bureau d'Audience Publique sur l'Environnement. And once that's deposited, the City of Montreal will now publish notices in the newspaper, in the English and French newspapers this week. Once those notices are published, the public will have 30 days to give their suggestions, recommendations, and ideas as to what kind of environmental impact studies should be conducted by the City of Montreal, because the BAP, the Bureau d'Audience Publique sur l'Environnement, is going to order those studies and is going to review them in the upcoming months. And those studies will basically deal with the configuration of the road. As you know, the City of Montreal has proposed a road with bike paths, with sidewalks, with a dedicated rapid transit lane, so just for a rapid transit bus, and one lane of traffic in each direction, which Côte Saint-Luc feels is insufficient. So that should be a subject that we need to discuss. And more importantly, we also need to ask the BAP to review the on-ramp. How is it going to look? What is it going to be like north of Mackle, probably somewhere around Collins, to enter the Cavendish extension? And what is the noise implications, the vibration? How is it going to be integrated with the other road network around the Cavendish extension? All these issues are going to be studied by the BAP, and I'm going to keep you posted. And once we have the notice in the newspaper, we are going to post on our website, inviting our public and all residents of Côte Saint-Luc to give their ideas and recommendations, suggestions as to how this thing should go forward. So you can look forward to that, and it's going to be posted on our website in the coming week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Who else would like to speak? Okay, we have Councillor Erlian and Councillor Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start on the finance side. So a reminder to residents, the first tax installment was due February 24th. So hopefully everyone got it in on time. And the second installment is due on May 25th. In terms of rebates for water filters, we're up to 91 at the beginning of the month. And 5 charging station rebates were submitted as well. So the goal, of course, is more people to purchase filters to make sure that they're filtering out any possible lead that may be in the water. If you live in a home that may have a lead service line. And of course, we encourage more families to purchase electric vehicles. Also, I want to mention in terms of outstanding taxes, so these are taxes from 2020. When we published the list in the Suburban, we were at 35. A few days ago, we were at 9. And the most recent, thank you, Maître Schechter, we're now at 6. So that number keeps going down, and we hope it'll be 0 very soon. And, as I've stated before, we haven't sold a property for unpaid taxes, at least in the 16 years I've been a councillor, and even before. And obviously, we hope it doesn't happen this year again. On the environmental side, in Public Works, the Public Works Department replaced 50 LED lights in our City Hall building. So I'm happy to see more and more lights being converted to LEDs. Not only are they more energy efficient, not only are they brighter, but of course it produces better light, and it's good for the environment. And on top of that, I should mention we've done about 832 of our streetlights, mostly the Cobra heads, and with more to come. So that number will go up again this summer, hopefully once all the snow melts and we can start changing more lights over. On the waste side, we only have January results, so January this year to January last year. The organic waste is up by 19%. The garbage is also up by 2%, but it's still early, so I'm hoping that over time that number will continue to go down as it has been over the last few years. And that's it for now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. Councillor Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report on recreation begins with spring break. We held 2 weeks of spring break activities for kids and their families, depending on who was on break when. I believe the parochial schools had the first week and the public schools in the second week. One of the highlights was Bruno Velo, which is a company that came to Pierre-Elliott Trudeau Park, and they brought fat bikes, which are bikes that have wider wheels for better traction on snow, and 55 residents tried those out, including my family. Had some difficulty, but it was great to try something new and get out into the fresh air. And Recreation got a lot of positive feedback about that activity, among other activities that went on with Mad Science and Repti Zoo and outdoor games and drop-in sporting activities at our indoor facilities. Right now, the Recreation Department is gearing up for spring and organizing the scheduling of online and in-person classes and courses being offered. Registration for those is at the beginning of April. Hours have expanded at the recreation facilities as of today. And as mentioned earlier in the meeting, the vaccine passport is not required. There's also people have been definitely asking me about day camp registration, and that will begin for Côte Saint-Luc residents on March 29th at noon. The camp is based at the ACC this year, which is a change from previous years, and it's divided up into 3 units based on age. And for those who want to register their children for Côte Saint-Luc camps, registration is at the ACC, but also online, and just to have your Medicare card on hand, your kid's Medicare card. For more information, you can go to csldaycamps.com. And lastly, I just want to thank the recreation team for their ongoing enthusiasm and resilience as we change schedules and adapt based on the previous COVID requirements. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schuster. Anyone else? Councillor Van Isri and then Councillor Kajowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to mention some highlights, from Public Work Department. So snow operation were in full swing during February with the different snow and rain events. The arena annex maintained great ice condition in both facilities. I will switch in French. Plusieurs pièces de rechange de l'équipement du garage ont été fabriquées en interne par notre soudeur, ce qui a permis à la ville d'économiser des dizaines de milliers de dollars. Et de nombreux préparatifs pour la modernisation de nos parcs ont été achevés. Comme on vous l'a mentionné, à partir de cette semaine, l'utilisation des poubelle noire de la ville est désormais obligatoire depuis la fin de la période de la tolérance en février. Et ce que j'aimerais aussi juste mentionner, il y a le nettoyage aussi des bouches d'égout et la réparation des nids de poules ont été une priorité et seront une priorité pour les semaines à venir. J'aimerais, thanks to all our team at Public Works and our director, Beatrice Newman, for all their work. I think it's important to highlight the work that is done by the team at Public Works. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Benizri. Councillor Kajowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you to our Public Works. They had a rough month of February and a fun beginning to the month of March. So I'll just take a moment to thank the 20-odd people who came out to my first district meeting, or Q&A, as I call them, of this mandate. I think at the maximum, we had about 24 people out. We had a very lively discussion, as always. Some new people came in for the first time. The conversation was focused mostly around lead pipes, the big concerns to District 5 residents, a little bit of Kerwin Park mention. But primarily we had a good half-hour, 40-minute discussion about lead pipes and updating everyone on the plan and the development of the plan and so on. So just on that topic, I'll just repeat what I said last month, and I think I'll repeat it every month until the end of the summer, is our system is going to be opening in the month of April for people to book their water testing, to test the water. For people who have not yet tested their water, please do so, because we need the information in order to craft the final plan on how long it's going to take us to change out all the lead pipes on the public side, on the city side. So please do that. Go online, go to our website, and book that appointment as soon as the bookings open in the month of April. I guess that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kajowski. Okay, that's it. So if that is all for now, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of the departmental reports? Carried unanimously, and we move to financial services. Item 5A, Maitre Schechter, our city manager, will table the report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I would like to formally table the Treasurer's activity report concerning the election activities for the 2021 fiscal year, the whole as per the law.
Thank you, Maitre Schechter.
My pleasure.
Done. Now we move on to resolution for disbursements. Councillor Erbley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the attached list of disbursements for the period of February 1st, 2022 to February 28th, 2022 for a total amount of $4,100,619.66 in Canadian funds, and that Treasurer's Certificate number 22-0041 dated March 4th, 2022 has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Erbley, seconded by Councillor Burku. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Erbley.
So just some of the highlights. So we had some of the payment for some of the work that was done in terms of the Public Works yard and the dome, the payment for snow removal, annual license payment for the PG software that we use in many of our systems in the city, and a bond repayment. So those were the four largest items on this month's disbursement. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay. And now we move on to general management resolution proclaiming May 17th as the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. Councillor Kajowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will read the preamble. Whereas in 1969, the Canadian government passed an omnibus bill decriminalizing private sexual acts between two people over the age of 21, a breakthrough in treating gay men, lesbians, and bisexuals equally under the law. Whereas in 1977, Quebec became the first jurisdiction in Canada to amend its provincial Charter of Human Rights to include sexual orientation as a prohibited ground for discrimination. Whereas the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms recognizes that no discrimination may be exercised on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Whereas Quebec is a society that is open to all, including lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans, LGBTQ plus people, and all other people who identify with sexual diversity and the plurality of gender identities and expressions. Whereas, despite recent efforts for greater inclusion of LGBTQ plus people, homophobia and transphobia remain present in society. Whereas May 17th is the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, which is celebrated in many countries and is the result of a Quebec initiative promoted by Fondation Émergence since 2003. Whereas the city of Côte Saint-Luc supports human rights and stands against discrimination, whereas it is appropriate to support the efforts of Fondation Émergence in holding this day. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby proclaims May 17th, 2022 as the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, and to recognize this day as such.
Moved by Councillor Kajowski, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion?
The resolution itself is self-explanatory. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor.
Very well written. Thank you. Okay, excellent. So all in favor? Carried unanimously, and we move to the next item, which is Human Resources, 7A, Councillor Benizri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council ratifies the hiring of Antonios Yunis as a permanent mechanic effective February 23, 2022. That treasurer's certificate number 22-0056 dated March 4, 2022 has been issued by the city treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Benizri, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? No. Carried unanimously. We move to item 7B, Councillor Berkeley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going to find the page here. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc Council ratifies the hiring of Melina Muna as permanent human resources technician effective March 1st, 2022, and that the treasurer's certificate number 22-0058 dated March 4th, 2022 has been issued by the city treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Berkeley, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion?
So it's just hiring of a permanent human resources technician. And we hope that she works out well here. So we're looking forward to having her on board. Thank you.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Councillor Cohen, in favor? Okay, carried unanimously. And now we move on to item C, Councillor Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council ratifies the hiring of Malika St. John as a permanent reception, admission, and shop attendant effective February 12th, 2022. That treasurer's certificate number 22-0059 dated March 4th, 2022 has been issued by the city treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Schuster, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion?
No, the following few points on the agenda are all similar hires within Parks and Rec white collar positions.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, carried unanimously. And now we move to C, Councillor Schuster. D, I mean, Councillor Schuster.
D. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council ratifies the hiring of Emily Gorovoy as a part-time auxiliary reception, admission, and shop attendant effective February 20th, 2022. That treasurer's certificate number 22-0055 dated March 4th, 2022, has been issued by the city treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Schuster, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously, and we move to E, Councillor Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council ratifies the hiring of Louis Gabriel Racicot as a part-time auxiliary reception, admission, and shop attendant effective February 27th, 2022. That treasurer's certificate number 22-0057, dated March 4th, 2022, has been issued by the city treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Schuster, seconded by Councillor Azarad. No, any discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously, and we move to the next item, which is F, Councillor Schuster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the hiring of the white-collar auxiliary employees whose names are listed in the document titled Auxiliary Employees, White Collars Hiring, dated March 8th, 2022, and that said employees' terms of employment will be as per the conditions of the collective agreement. That treasurer's certificate number 22-0061, dated March 8th, 2022, has been issued by the city treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Schuster, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to describe to the public, because this one is not as straightforward as the other ones I've read, that this is a list of largely day camp staff, senior counselors, junior counselors, and park leaders.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously. So we will have camp. And now and other things. And now we move on to item G, Councillor Azarad.
Okay, be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the appointment of Erwin Luden as a permanent dispatch in the Public Safety Department effective February 21st, 2022.
Moved by Councillor Azarad, seconded by Councillor Schuster. Any discussion?
Straightforward here.
All in favor? Carried unanimously. We move to H, Councillor Gajowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the appointment of Ariane Sear as an auxiliary full-time building inspector in the Urban Development Department effective January 26, 2022. That treasurer certificate number 22-0060 dated March 4th, 2022 has been issued by the city treasurer attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Gajowski, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we move to item I, Councillor Benizri. Item I.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the appointment of Anthony Grillon as a permanent office agent in the Public Works Department effective February 28, 2022.
Moved by Councillor Benizri, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion? All in favor?
No.
Carried unanimously. Okay. And now we move to item J, Councillor Cohen. Library. You're on mute. You're on mute. You look good, but we don't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I have two computers and I was looking at the wrong computer. I was saying, where did it go? Okay, I so move that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the list of disbursements for the period of February 1st, 2022 to February 28th, 2022 for a total amount of $4,100,619.66 in Canadian funds. That the treasurer certificate number 22-0041 dated March 4th, 2022.
Mike,
You're on the wrong item. Which one are you doing even?
This is the one that I was given before the meeting.
No,
I think
this
that was
is
mine.
No, this one here is about the Eleanor London Public Library permanent office position. It's item number 7J. It's just appointment of an office agent.
Okay, I got it.
7J.
Page 272, Mike.
Okay, 7J, sorry, okay. Appointment of a permanent office agent, 7J, got it. Sorry, I got my math wrong, so. Got my letters wrong. Okay, I so move that Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the appointment of John Chiazza as a permanent office agent in the Eleanor London Côte Saint-Luc Public Library effective March 1st, 2022. I've got to write neater in my.
Move it, Councillor Cohen, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Is there any discussion? We got the right item. That's the key. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we move to K, which is Councillor Gajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council ratifies the hiring of Evelyn Vuong as an auxiliary assistant permit agent effective January 26, 2022. That treasurer certificate number 22-0402 dated February 3rd, 2022 has been issued by the city treasurer attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Gajewski, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we move to Legal Services, Councillor Burku. Councillor Burku.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to read the resolution. This is a resolution authorizing the legal department to participate in a settlement conference. So whereas, I think I have to read at least one whereas, let me just see which one. Whereas on August 10th, 2020, the city of Côte Saint-Luc filed a lawsuit against 9413-2990 Quebec Inc., doing business under the name Aqua Rehab Canada, la compagnie d'assurance commerciale AIG du Canada, et CIMA et SNEC lawsuit. Okay, so since then, we've been involved in this lawsuit. November 27th, the city filed an amended lawsuit, whereas the city requested to participate in a settlement conference to avoid the costs of a long and protracted lawsuit. Be it resolved that the preamble of this resolution shall form an integral part therein as if cited herein at length. Oh, sorry, I just lost it. Apologize for that. Be it resolved that the City Council of Côte Saint-Luc hereby authorizes Maitre Jonathan Schechter, attorney for plaintiff Charles Senecal, Director of Urban Development, and any other employee they may require to participate in a settlement conference and allow them to settle the above lawsuit in the presence of a judge, capping the maximum it shall request to $6,124.31, representing half of the capital value of the debt.
Moved by Councillor Burku, seconded by Councillor Erdely, I think.
Yeah, so basically what this is a lawsuit that we filed in August 2020 and which we would now like to resolve through with something called a settlement conference. And we're authorizing our Director of Legal Affairs to engage in that settlement conference in order to settle the claim. So against Aqua Rehab, which did some sleeving about more than 10 years ago. Thank you.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Carried unanimously, and we move to item 10, Public Works. 10A, Councillor Ben-Ezra.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Est résolu que le conseil municipal de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, par la présente, ratifie l'achat de carburant pour sa flotte de véhicules pendant l'année 2021, conformément au regroupement d'achat organisé par la ville de Montréal et la STM comme suit. Essence sans plan d'Énergie Valero incorporée au montant total de 165 027 $ plus les taxes applicables. Diesel clair de lait pétrole par clan au montant total de 165 803 $, plus les taxes applicables.
Proposé par le conseiller Bénézri et appuyé par le conseiller Erdely. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions? Councillor Erdely.
Yeah, so if I could just add, so what this has to do with is the fact that we ended up spending more on fuel in 2021 than when we had originally expected. Part of it obviously is related to the increase, or most of it I should say is related to the increased cost of energy. In terms of dollar values, we ended up spending about $80,000 more than we had in the previous year. On the unleaded side, about 30% more, and on diesel, about 17.5%. But all that to mention, one of the plans that the city is working on is to electrify our fleet of vehicles already. This year, I shouldn't say this year, at the end of 2021, we purchased 3 more additional electric vehicles, and the goal over the next few years is to continue to gradually replace our vehicles with more and more electric ones to reduce this number, and hope to have more to report on this in upcoming meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely. 10B, Councillor Bénézri.
Yes.
Purchase and planting of trees.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, on a procedural
Oh, yeah,
point,
move and second it, all in favor.
we have to
All
vote.
in favor, all in favor. It's good that you're watching. I don't know why I missed that. Mike, all in favor? Everybody's in favor? Good. Okay. All right, next.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Est résolu que le conseil municipal de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc déclare par la présente la soumission d'Orange Paysagement Incorporé non conforme et par conséquent cette soumission est rejetée. Que le conseil municipal octroie par la présente un contrat à terrassement technique incorporé pour l'achat et la plantation d'arbres conformément aux conditions de l'appel d'offres numéro C-02-22 au montant de 200 000 $ plus les taxes applicables. Que les dépenses décrites soient financées du règlement d'emprunt numéro 2586 intitulé Règlement 2586 autorisant un emprunt de 210 000 $ pour l'achat de la plantation de divers arbres sur le territoire de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc. Que l'octroi du contrat susmentionné est assujetti à l'approbation du dit règlement d'emprunt par le ministère des Affaires municipales de l'Habitation. Que le certificat du trésorier numéro 22-0053 a été émis le 3 mars 2022 par le trésorier de la ville, attestant la disponibilité des fonds pour couvrir les dépenses décrites.
Okay. Proposé par le conseiller Bénézri, appuyé par le conseiller Erdely, je pense, oui. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions? Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Erdely.
Yeah, just wanted to share. So if we go back to 2013, and most of this, I have to admit, is because of the Emerald Ash Borer. The city has cut down almost 2,200 trees, so about 2,188 trees in almost 10 years. In that period, we planted 2,100 trees. So we're still in a deficit, but every year that deficit gets smaller and smaller. So that deficit is now, over the last 10 years, a deficit of 88 trees. And this year, 2022, will be the year we turn that deficit into a surplus. So I'm happy to report that. And I'm hoping, obviously, we'll be able to plant a lot more trees and bring us to the positive side. And each year, of course, now to grow that tree surplus that we are finally creating. So I hope, again, hope we'll be able to share in terms of the numbers of trees being planted throughout the meetings in 2022. Thank you.
All in favor? Carried unanimously, and we're in favor of planting more trees. And we go on to the next item, which is 10C. Councillor Bénézri.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Est résolu que le conseil municipal de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc octroie par la présente un contrat à Global Industrial Incorporé pour l'achat de 10 fontaines à boire pour un montant total de 34 787,99 $, plus les taxes applicables. Que les dépenses décrites soient financées de l'excédent cumulatif projet lié au petit parc de la ville. Que le certificat du trésorier numéro 22-0054 en date du 3 mars 2022 a été émis par le trésorier de la ville attestant la disponibilité des fonds pour couvrir les dépenses décrites.
OK, proposé pour le conseiller Benizri et appuyé par le conseiller Schuster. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions? It's a little interesting here. We have 10 new water fountains, drinking water fountains that are going to be in parks across the city. Do you want to read the list, anyone, or no? Okay. Somebody has it in front of them, great. Otherwise, just look forward to a new water fountain near you in a park near you. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay. Everybody was in favor there? You put Councillor Cohen, you were in favor? Great. All in favor. Carried unanimously. And now we go to purchasing and general counsel, tabling 11A. Maitre Schechter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I hereby confirm that the yearly report on the application of bylaw number 2497 entitled Bylaw Concerning Contract Management is hereby tabled for the 2021 calendar year, the whole once again as per the law and the city's legal obligation.
Moved by Council, tabled. Okay, that's it. Councillor Berger, you want to make some comments on that?
Hang on. I wanted to, oh, I'm okay. I wanted to congratulate our purchasing department headed by Andrea Sharon, because I really feel this is important. You know, this is like the bread and butter of what we do. We buy all kinds of products and services, and we have to do it in a way that is absolutely correct and ethical and according to the rules. And so this report really helps us see what we're purchasing, how we're purchasing it, what is under the delegated authority, what is not delegated, how the, what council approves of in the end. And it goes, what contracts are going by public tender or by invited tender. All of this is given to us in great detail, and I really do appreciate it. It's dry. It's the sort of the statistics, but it definitely is very, much essential to the proper functioning of the city. And this report is obviously available. I mean, it's being tabled because it's available for public scrutiny. And anyone who wants to see how much we spent on the structure at Fletcher Park in May 2021 can see that it was $37,413. All of this is available and is being tabled now. And I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So that's a tabling. Now we go on to item 11B, Councillor Burku.
Oh, my turn. Okay, so where are we? Oh, yes. Okay, this is very important. Oh, okay. So whereas following the public tender number C-15-19-25 on November 11th, 2019, the City of Côte Saint-Luc awarded a contract to Waste Management Quebec Inc. for the collection of waste, bulky waste, and organic material for a period of 5 years, commencing February 1st, 2020 and ending January 31st, 2025. Whereas Section 573, paragraph 2.0.1 of the Cities and Towns Act allows a municipality to proceed with the banning of a supplier based on an unsatisfactory performance evaluation. Whereas one of the conditions to commence this process is for the City Council to designate a city representative to perform the evaluation. Be it resolved, the City of Côte Saint-Luc hereby appoints the Director of Public Works Department to evaluate Waste Management Quebec Inc. performance under the obligations set out in tender number C-15-19-25.
Moved by Councillor Burku, seconded by Councillor Benizri. Any discussion?
Yes. So we are very aware that the waste management company that is collecting our basically our waste and also our organic waste is, not doing has got some issues and problems over the past few months, to say the least. And so we are appointing our Director of Public Works to evaluate their performance, to give us a report, and to make recommendations as to how we can correct the issues with waste management, with the waste management company. So we are doing everything in our power to basically listen to our residents and respect our obligations, and to provide the best service possible. And this is the next step, where our director is going to do an evaluation. So, and in the meantime, they have been charged many penalties. Stephen Erdely and I review the checks on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and we see very well that they've been penalized every time that the service is not completely up to par.
Great. Okay, and we even got notification on one of the questions today, so very appropriate. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. And now we move on to item 11C. Councilor Burku, notice of motion.
Oui, OK.
Code of ethics.
D'accord. Si c'est en français, je vais le lire en français, je ne sais pas. Attendez-moi un instant. Celui-là, c'est page 368. Attendez. OK. Alors, par la présente, je donne avis de motion que le règlement 2580 à être intitulé règlement amendant le règlement 2393 et 2393-1 intitulé Code d'éthique et de la déontologie pour les employés de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc sera présenté à une réunion subséquente pour adoption. Et par la présente, je dépose le projet 2580 à être intitulé règlement amendant le règlement 2393 et 2393-1 intitulé Code d'éthique de la déontologie pour les employés de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc.
Okay. So notice of motion taken.
Now I'm just going to explain. I'm going back to page 347 to explain all this. So we have a code of ethics for the councillors. We also have a code of ethics for the city employees, and it's on the same theme as I was talking about before, purchasing policies and how we do all our purchasing, and everything has to be done correctly and ethically and according to the rules. And we do have a bylaw in place already, which was adopted in 2013 and then amended in 2016. And now we're going to bring it up to date because the rules regarding ethics are constantly being upgraded and updated by the government. So basically the purpose of the code is to outline the values of the city, the rules of conduct that promote the city values, how to prevent situations of conflict, and also how to enforce the code. And any issues of conflict of interest, that is, if anyone in the purchasing department were to receive any gifts or anything that might influence them, I mean, this is definitely covered in this code of ethics. And there are other issues as well dealing with the respect between employees, council members, city affiliates, and city customers, civility, prudence, and integrity. All of this is in the code of ethics. And I think the next step is that the senior management is going to meet with the employees to explain to them exactly what has been modified in the code of ethics. Thank you. So all this, again, Andrea Sharon has been working on, and we appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you, Maitre Sharon. Now, if anybody wants to ask a question in the second question period, you can go to cotesaintluc.org/council and put in your question, because we will be having a second question period after we do the urban planning section of the meeting, which is next. Okay, so now we're moving to 12A. 12A, Councillor Kajewski. Awarding of a contract for professional services for road resurfacing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the City of Côte Saint-Luc Council hereby awards a contract to Groupe Civitas Inc. for professional services regarding road resurfacing for a total negotiated amount of $122,500 plus applicable taxes. That the described expenses shall be financed as follows: $98,600 from the tech grant and $23,900 from the bylaw number 2584 entitled Bylaw 2584 authorizing a loan of $988,000, including professional fees for the resurfacing of road and sidewalk repairs at various locations belonging to the City of Côte Saint-Luc. That the awarding of the aforementioned contract shall be subject to the approval of said financing by law by the Ministère des Affaires Municipales de l'Habitation. That Treasurer's Certificate number TC 22-0052 dated March 2nd, 2022 has been issued by the City Treasurer attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Kajewski, seconded by Councillor Azarad. Any discussion?
I would mention, I don't know, am I on?
Go ahead. You're on.
Okay. I would mention that the professional services are for the road reconstruction of Haywood, Schweitzer, and Mather, and possibly the fire department once we resolve the issue with the aglo. So this is good. At least these streets are going to get done. Not with this contract. This is the professional services. And the next step is we have to give the contract for the paving of the streets.
Okay, excellent. Move and second, all in favor? Carried unanimously, and now we move on with Councillor Cohn. Get that hand up. Okay, now we go on to 13A, bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw for, this is a big one, City of Côte Saint-Luc in order to replace the current table of uses and norms for certain zones, which will be read shortly, and it deals with adding religious usages to certain buildings within our city, which is the first step in a process that we've been discussing for some time and was mentioned by two questioners during the public question period. So let's move to this step. Councillor Burku.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2217 to be entitled bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw number 2217. I see it says bylaw 2217-JJJ-PI. I hope that's the right number. Bylaw to amend
P1 data, sorry.
P1. Okay, sorry. Bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw number 2217, City of Côte Saint-Luc in order to replace the current tables of uses and norms of zone CC3, CD1, CD5, and CD8 with new tables of uses and norms will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. And I also want to mention that the object and scope of the bylaw is to be entitled bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw 2217 of the City of Côte Saint-Luc in order to replace the current tables of uses and norms for CC3, CD1, CD5, and CD8 with new tables of uses and norms, more specifically to permit religious institutions to operate in these zones. So that's the first part. And I guess that there must be a resolution to adopt the first draft. So I'll do that at the same time and then I'll explain. So that whereas under provincial order in council number 2020-049, any procedure other than a referendum that is in part of the decision-making process of a municipal body and that involves the movement of or gathering of citizens whereas under provincial order in council number 22, I stand corrected. It's 22. Geez, what did I do with that number? I wrote it down. Sorry, it's not that number. It's 22-054, I believe. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah, it's 2021
2021-054. Sorry.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's number 2021-054. Yes, I wrote it down. Sorry. Any procedure other than a referendum that is part of the decision-making process of municipal body and that involves the movement or gathering of citizens may be replaced by a 15-day written consultation, which will be announced by public notice. Whereas Provincial Order in Council number 2021-054, when applicable, supersedes the provisions of the Act respecting land use and planning development in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is soon coming to an end, but we're still covered by it. So be it resolved that in conformity with the Act respecting land use and development, the Côte Saint-Luc Council hereby adopts the first draft bylaw 2217-JJJ-P1 to be entitled bylaw 2217-JJJ-P1 to amend the zoning bylaw number 2217 in the City of Côte Saint-Luc in order to replace the current tables of uses and norms for CC3, CD1, CD5, and CD8. And then in lieu of the public consultation meeting provided by paragraph 2 of section 125 of the Land Use Planning and Development Act, Côte Saint-Luc Council hereby declares a 15-day written consultation period as per provincial order in council be held, and said written consultation will commence as of the date of the publication of the public notice to that effect. So that's to be seconded, and then I will explain. Oh, is there another? Okay, so that's to be seconded.
Okay,
Yeah,
moved by
you
Councilor
seconded.
Berger, seconded by Councilor Schuster. Any discussion?
So that's those. Okay, so the first part of this, I'll deal with the consultation process afterwards. The first part of this is that we are now in a phase 1 of a resolution to adopt the draft bylaw, which will expand or allow religious use in certain commercial zones. So CC3 is Cavendish Mall, and the religious use will be permitted in the Cavendish Mall if the property owner, the owners of the mall so desire, and if there is a willingness for a religious group to rent in the Cavendish Mall. CD1 is the Olenbeck property at 5555 Westminster, where the police station is presently in corner of Côte Saint-Luc and Westminster. So religious use will be also permitted in that property. CD5 is the Adar, what we know as Adar, on Westminster. We don't have the address here, but it's right as you come out of the underpass. Religious use will also be allowed there. And we know that there presently is a group which are using the second floor for religious purposes. So this will just basically legitimize and allow them to be using that space in a more formal and legal way. And CD8 is the 7005 Kildare Center, which is the CIBC and the medical center. And that will also, this bylaw amendment, the zoning amendment, will allow this shopping strip mall also to have religious use. Now, the logic and the idea behind this is to basically expand the options available to give a greater offering to religious groups in our community. And unbeknownst to many people, but I will mention it here, there already is religious use allowed in commercial zones such as the Westminster north of Mackle, right at the top north of Mackle, across the street from Vincelli. There's religious use allowed there. There's religious use allowed in the shopping center on Westminster where the Fruity Marudi is, right behind B'nai B'rith. There is the religious use also allowed on Caldwell next to Kildare, and and then also in the Côte Saint-Luc shopping center. So we have sort of identified on the map of Côte Saint-Luc places where there can be groups or institutions or religious congregations that can rent space, that can use space. And of course, also in all the senior residences, whether it's B'nai B'rith or the old Montefiore or they all have the ability to accommodate religious use. So that was sort of the flip side of what we're trying to do with the PPCMOI, which is say, okay, we would like the religious institutions to move out of the residential, strictly residential zones, but we want to give them more options and more opportunity to rent and to use space elsewhere. So this gives them that opportunity, opens up some doors for them, and maybe we will be able to do some matchmaking between some commercial strip malls and some religious groups that need to either legitimize where they are presently, and if that doesn't work out, they can, this is another option. Of course, we know that there are many synagogues in the community that also have large spaces available, so that's another option. So we're creating more opportunity and more options, and in order to encourage those that are in residential, strictly residential establishments to find alternative accommodation. So that's basically the logic and the purpose of this and the first bylaw that we're putting forward.
So the PCMWA bylaw, which was the next one, allows the institutions that are in residential zones to apply for an additional use in order to stay where they are. Now, it will be up to the public to agree or not. Many of them have been there for many years and have been accepted by the community. Others might not. And the step that we're doing here today is really to ensure that the future of our community provides for the growth, where needed, of religious prayer in commercial zones, areas where the community will embrace, whether they are religious or not, that type of congregation. So this process is to provide more than enough options outside of residential zones. So if there is future needs, it will be very clearly indicated where you can go. Because this council will not tolerate future applications in residential zones. So this is a process that is not an easy one. We're trying to do it in a very gentle and delicate way in order to see which ones are accepted where they are and which ones may not be, and also to create a city for the future that accommodates the secular community and the religious community in harmony. And it's not an easy task, but we are going to get there, doing it step by step in the way that we're starting here today. So that is the goal, and I'm glad that we've come to the first step. So I know we moved and seconded, but I don't know if we've voted on it. Have we?
Right, and I just want to talk about the second resolution, which was the consultation. So once it's published in the newspaper, which should be towards the 23rd of March or end of March, then there'll be a 15-day consultation process open to the public to send in their comments, and that will be, written in the notice in the newspaper. So if anyone has any comments on this particular bylaw, zoning changes, that would be the appropriate time to do it. And of course, they can call City Hall anytime to talk to the clerk's office to see, how else they can intervene.
But adding additional uses does not create an obligation for any owner to do anything. It just provides them with an ability to do more. So if they have an empty space, rather than leaving it empty, now they have another choice. They could rent it to a store, they could rent it to a religious use. So it's giving owners more opportunities to fill their spaces as well, which is a good thing. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we move to the next item, which is item 13B, Councillor Erdling, dealing with sanitation and maintenance of dwelling units.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to mention the differences between the draft bylaw tabled, draft bylaw 2595 tabled at the February 14th, 2022 public council meeting and the final version 2595 being adopted at tonight's meeting, namely clerical modifications to Articles 20, 27, 28, 35, 36, 37, 48, and 57. Note though the clerical changes don't change the essence of the above mentioned articles. Therefore, be it resolved that bylaw 2595, entitled bylaw 2595 concerning the sanitation and maintenance of dwellings be and is hereby adopted.
Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Erdely, seconded by. Whoever wishes, Councillor Urku. Any discussion? Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll share. So this bylaw is basically another tool in the arsenal of the city. We have many apartment buildings. I would say, thankfully, most of the apartment buildings, most of the landlords are good, are good citizens and take good care of the buildings and the residents who live in those buildings. Some are not as, and it's for those reasons we need bylaws like this, which regulate things such as uncleanliness, things such as issues with access or obstruction to access and egress of buildings. Issues like the temperature, to make sure that the temperature is maintained in spite of the cold weather outside. So it is for that reason we're adopting this bylaw to add and to serve as one more tool for our urban planning department or public security department so that they can work in conjunction with the police and other departments in the city of Montreal and on the island of Montreal, I should say, to make sure that we're able to enforce bylaws to maintain the buildings and if necessary, to fine the landlords and force them to do the necessary work to clean up their buildings. And I should mention on this point, we're continuing to look at other avenues to further force landlords to make sure they're maintaining their buildings. So I hope to share more on this topic as well in the upcoming months for residents. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously, and we move to the next item, which is 13.1, site planning for Sunrise and then Westminster. Councillor Kajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll go to the resolution first, and then you'll see up on the screen the item that we're talking about. So first, 5723, 5725 Sunrise. Be it resolved that the site planning and architectural integration program showing a modification to the facade of an existing two-family semi-detached dwelling on lot 1053784 at 5723, 5725 Sunrise and prepared by Ariel Aaron, architect for the Planning Advisory Committee, meeting of January 18th, 2022, and revised on January 20th, 2022, be approved according to the provisions of Chapter 14 of Bylaw 2217 of the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
Thank you, Councillor Kajewski. Seconded by Councillor Ben-Isri. Any discussion?
So this is just the approval of a slight change to the facade of this duplex. Initially, I should mention that PAC was not in favor of this design, but after further discussion and working, and thank you to Melanie Rothman for working with the resident, the homeowner made an improvement to the layout of the basement unit. And other changes, other improvements that that helped council get behind the design. I should mention there's a minor exemption coming as well for this project.
Good. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we move to the next item, 612 Westminster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the site planning and architectural integration program showing a new 4-story multifamily dwelling on the existing vacant lot 1290402 and prepared by Olivia Weitzman, architect for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of February 15th, 2022, be approved according to the provisions of Chapter 14 of Bylaw 2217 of the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
Moved by Councillor Kajewski, and seconded by Councillor Erdely, I believe. Any discussion?
I actually had a flashback about an hour ago looking through this resolution, and I remember discussing this project in person in the committee room behind the council chamber. I believe it was probably late 2019. Again, thank you to the urban planning staff for working with the residents on this, because the revised project is very, very much approved. Initially, it was, I think, hesitatingly moved forward by council, and I think it was almost enthusiastically approved or recommended to be approved by PAC. I think it'll make a really nice addition to that little stretch of Westminster. The location's just between Westover and Côte Saint-Luc Road on Westminster. Very attractive, modern-looking building.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? It's carried unanimously, and we move to the next items, which are minor exemptions for the same two properties.
Correct. So be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of bylaw G 18-0005, the request for a minor exemption regarding the property located at 5723, 5725 Sunrise, lot 1053784, be and is hereby approved, the whole as more amply delineated hereunder. The request is to allow the two-family semi-detached dwelling to maintain a total of 2 indoor parking spaces instead of providing the minimum required number of interior parking spaces of 2 interior parking spaces per dwelling unit, a total of 4 interior parking spaces. The whole notwithstanding the provisions of zoning bylaw number 2217, article 7-2-1B.
Moved by Councillor Kajewski, seconded by Councillor Ben-Isri. Any discussion?
So this is very straightforward, minor exemption to allow for 2 indoor parking spaces. I should mention that the property is I guess a triplex in a way, modified triplex.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried unanimously, and now we move to the next item. Minor exemption for 612 Westminster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just finish off my flashback, I guess, right? All right, be it resolved that the present minor exemption request repeals and replaces the minor exemption previously approved by the Côte Saint-Luc City Council for the said property by way of resolution 200338 at the regular council meeting held on March 16th, 2020, everyone's favorite day. That in accordance with the provisions of bylaw G 18-0005, the request for a minor exemption regarding the property located at 612 Westminster, lot 1290402, be and is hereby approved, the whole as more amply delineated hereunder. The request is to allow the construction of a 4-story multifamily dwelling. Maybe we'll just correct that typo if necessary. To be located at a minimum of 1.21 meters, 4 feet from the southeast lateral landline instead of the minimum required setback of 6.09 meters when there are windows. To be located at a minimum of 4.26 meters from the northwest lateral landline instead of the minimum required setback of 6.09 meters when there are windows. To be located at a minimum of 4.56 meters from the front landline instead of the minimum front setback of 7.62 meters. To be located at a minimum of 2.43 meters from the rear landline instead of the minimum required rear setback of 6.09 meters when there are windows. To allow parking area at the back of the building to be located at a minimum of 1.18 meters from the rear landline instead of the minimum required distance of 1.82 meters, to have 4 interior parking spaces instead of a minimum required 6 interior parking spaces, in addition to outdoor parking spaces with a length of 5.48 meters instead of the minimum required length of 6.09 meters are proposed. To have no visitor parking area instead of a required visitor parking area with a minimum of 10 parking spaces. to have a maximum land coverage ratio of 47% instead of a maximum permitted land coverage ratio of 37%, to have 3 balconies located at a minimum of 1.21 meters from the rear lot line instead of the minimum required distance of 3.05 meters, to allow the roof to project into the rear setback by more than the maximum permitted projection of 0.76 meters, as long as a minimum distance of 1.21 meters is maintained between the roof and the rear lot line, to install a total of 3 solariums, 1 per balcony, instead of a maximum of 1 solarium permitted on the land, and to locate them at a minimum distance of 1.9 meters from the rear lot line instead of a minimum distance of 3.05 meters from the rear lot line. The whole notwithstanding the provisions of zoning bylaw number 2217 Annex C, Articles 4-4-1, 4-4-2, 4-4-3, 4-4-5A and G, 4-2-2 Table 1, 7-2-5, 7-2-9, and 7-5-1.
Moved by Councillor Kajowski, seconded by Councillor Italy. Any discussion on all those meters?
No, but the department spoke with all the neighbors around, and everyone is comfortable with the slightly long list of minor exemptions.
Yeah, I would add to that. I mean, this
See
is
that?
what happens. This is what happens when the zoning allows for a certain height, but the lot is highly irregular, and it's very difficult to, you know, put that square peg in a round hole. But I think the final result is actually quite attractive and should really uplift that stretch of street. And the neighbors ultimately will be happy, and it's going to be a very nice project. The staff and the PAC and everyone worked very, very hard on it. So the result is nice.
Councillor Italy.
Yeah, if I can just to add to Councillor Burko's comments, you know, I agree. I think this is a project that's going to look beautiful, and it's going to be a nice fit in the end for the area. And to follow up on Councillor Kajowski's point, I remember this very well. This was one of the last meetings I held in person, was with the former urban planner Christian Chiasson, who was since retired. But I remember meeting with him in person in March, early March of 2020, to review this file, and we ended up adopting it originally, as Councillor Kajowski mentioned, was March 16th. That was that Monday where I believe it was the one where we declared a state of emergency and so on. So obviously this got overshadowed by some of the other events of that meeting, but I remember working on this and meeting previously to that with the owners of this property with urban planning to try to find something reasonable, and I'm happy to say it looks beautiful and much better than the previous versions that I'd seen over the last few years. So thank you to Councillor Kajowski, thank you to Mr. Senecal, our Director of Urban Planning, and the entire department.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. And now we move on to Stance at the Aglo, Councillor Azarad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that the council take the following stance in view of any agglomeration council meetings to be held in April 2022 as follows: to authorize the mayor or his duly authorized replacement to make any decisions he deems necessary and in the best interest of the city of Côte Saint-Luc and its residents regarding the items on the agenda of the agglomeration council meetings to be held in April 2022, based on the information to be presented during those meetings.
Moved by Councillor Azarad, seconded by whoever wishes. I don't know if anyone who wishes to let me. Okay, thank you, Councillor Italy. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And now I believe we have another business, another item dealing with
concerning public safety.
Public safety. We're adding to the agenda. Councillor Azarad with the entente, the new entente for EMS.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Urgence Santé.
Yes, pull up the.
Urgence Santé.
Okay, here we go. Be it resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby authorizes the city to enter into an agreement with the Corporation d'Urgence Santé entitled protocole d'entente entre la Corporation d'urgence santé et la ville de Côte Saint-Luc pour son service de premier répondant. That the council further authorizes any of the city manager, the associate city manager, the general counsel, or the director of public safety to sign the agreement that gives effect to the foregoing. So I'll just speak to that just to give a bit of clarification. So the current entente was from 2018 to 2021 and got extended an extra year to give them time to negotiate a better entente for Côte Saint-Luc. And there are some advantages, considerable lowering of costs for the services and much more operational flexibility. So that's pretty much it.
Moved by Councillor Azarad, seconded by Councillor Cohen. Any further discussion, although it was well explained? All in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we move to any other business or second question period. So is there any other business? Are there any questions?
Yes, we received one question for second question period.
Sure.
Donc, la question est de Madame Luce Martel. À titre de résidente avertie du projet de construction au 612 Westminster, j'aimerais demander aux conseillers qui ont appuyé la motion à la réunion du conseil tenue en mars 2020 si quelques considérations ont été accordées à l'égard des voisins qui seront directement touchés par l'immeuble qui sera construit sur le terrain 13 étoiles 612 Westminster. C'est que la modélisation de l'immeuble projeté illustre un immeuble disproportionnellement volumineux par rapport aux bâtisses avoisinantes présentement existantes et au terrain en question. Une attention a-t-elle été accordée à l'aspect architectural? De plus, l'aire de circulation de véhicules passe directement sous la fenêtre, la chambre à coucher, côté nord du logement que nous habitons et donne accès de façon beaucoup trop rapprochée côté cour à la circulation des véhicules, que ce soit pour aller au garage ou aux espaces de stationnement.
OK. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un qui est plus au courant de ce dossier qui peut répondre?
Alors, moi j'aimerais répondre à Madame Martel. C'est justement, on a pris en considération tous ces éléments et je viens de l'expliquer en anglais avant la fin de notre réunion. C'est que le zonage permet une construction de cette hauteur et malheureusement, à cause de la configuration du lot, c'est extrêmement étroit et très difficile à faire, to fit it in. Alors, on a pris en considération, vous avez été consulté d'ailleurs, Melanie Rothpan nous a fait parvenir vos préoccupations et je pense que le projet final, tel qu'on vient de l'adopter, c'est malheureux que vous ayez posé votre question après le vote, mais on vient de le voter et on ne peut pas changer le vote maintenant. Mais effectivement, ces éléments et ces enjeux et ces préoccupations ont été tenus en compte. Et je vous assure que nous allons faire tout dans notre possible avec le service d'urbanisme pour qu'ils respectent justement la distance et surtout pendant la période de construction. Mais la période de construction, ça, c'est quelque chose que tout le monde doit subir quand il y a une construction à côté de leur maison. Alors, j'apprécie le commentaire, mais je vous avoue que oui, ça a été pris en compte lorsqu'on a pris la décision et au CCU et avant ce soir, on a reçu les communiqués par Madame Rothpan qui travaille à la ville. Merci.
Merci. Are there other questions, Maître Prévost?
No, that was the only question.
Okay. So if there are no other questions, I'll call for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Schuster, seconded by Councillor Gajowski, all in favor. So we are adjourned.